This is the Top 5 brought to you by Texas Beef House here from Burger U in Orlando on the campus of UCF. Had a great time today. Top 5 teams that could make a big statement this weekend. And I know that as this goes on, you're gonna see a recurring theme here of these schools. They all have something else in common other than they could make big statement games this weekend. Number 5, West Virginia. They could put a real stamp on their season and Neil Brown's renaissance, so to speak, if they beat TCU. TCU's been really good. They can score a lot of points. I don't think that's going to happen, but if West Virginia is really maybe crawling up out of the muck, upsetting TCU would be huge and would send a statement around the Big 12 like, oh, hey, maybe this team is not to be trifled with. Number 4, Kentucky. And I'm not just doing, Hatfields and McCoys here, but the Wildcats play against Florida, 4-0. Devin Leary, who I'm very big on, has not had a great start to the season, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but the Gators have been vulnerable to Kentucky the last few years after dominating the rivalry for the better part, well, it feels like a century, but for 30-plus years. Just rolled through Kentucky every year, whether it's home or road, whatever. Kentucky might have flipped that. Florida's offense, not that effective. This should be maybe a little bit of a lower scoring game, but Kentucky's put some points up on the board this year. If Kentucky can get that win over Florida, the teams around them in the SEC East are all ranked. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mizzou, all those teams are ranked, and they've taken losses or they haven't looked good at times. And this could be the opportunity for Kentucky to get in the top 25. They could certainly make a statement this week. Number 3, Syracuse. They're all basketball schools, too, in case you haven't figured that out. Number 3, Syracuse takes on Clemson. Clemson has struggled at times with Syracuse, mostly gets their way in the end, but has struggled. Clemson rolls in 2-2, Syracuse 4-0 on the season. This could end Clemson's hopes of doing anything good this year in earnest in week 5. They're already essentially out of the ACC title picture, although things could happen and they could get their way back into that. Clemson played a really good game against Florida State last week, although losing in the end in overtime. But if Syracuse can put Clemson below 500 on October 1st, that would be wild, and they could make a statement that maybe last year where they started out like a house on fire and ended like whatever the opposite of that is, really poorly, could have been flipped and they could have developed. And they've got a coach in Dino Babers who needs to consistently have a good season as opposed to start out well and then finish poorly. Number 2, Duke. They've already beaten Clemson this year, 28-7. And they've got Notre Dame this weekend, who they host, who's coming off a tough last-second loss against Ohio State. Notre Dame going to be kind of hungry for this one. They've got to get themselves back on top. But for Duke, if you beat Clemson and Notre Dame, again, before October 1st, you are sending a message to the rest of the ACC and the rest of the country that you are also not to be trifled with. So Duke could make a huge statement this weekend at home. And number 1, Kansas, as they take on Texas. Texas, good, really good. Number 3 in the country. Kansas, number 24, on the rise. This is the first time in the rivalry, if you call it that, or in these matchups, that both these teams are good at the same time. That is never happened, ever. Even the games that Texas has lost, they did not beat good Texas teams, and Kansas was still kind of creeping its way up. In fact, one of the times that Kansas won was 2 bad teams playing. That was the game that essentially got Charlie Strong fired the first time Kansas beat Texas. This would be a really big statement game in the fact that Kansas can go beat a good Texas team as they are getting better and tell the rest of the Big 12, hey, we're in this thing too, and you better watch out. So it would be a huge statement in Austin to go do that. They've done it before, but again, these two teams in the history of the Big 12 playing each other have never been good at the same time, really. So this would change everything, save for maybe even the Todd Reesing years, and that might have been as Texas was starting to maybe creep a little bit. Well, no, I guess Texas was good then, but that was it. That's the only time they've ever really been good, and Kansas still lost to Texas then. So this is a huge opportunity for the Jayhawks to put themselves in the national scene and put a dent in Texas. Now, will it be easy? Absolutely not. But this weekend, Kansas could certainly make a huge statement in this. Teams that can make a big statement this weekend, top 5, that all wind up having to be basketball schools as well. That's it for me here at Burger U in Orlando. We're back again tomorrow at Bounce House Social. So we'll have another show for you at 4 to 7 here from Orlando as Baylor prepares to play UCF. This is 365 Sports.